Do I have enough time? I don't know. Jerry's looking at his watch. Maybe. I'm not worried. So do I have enough time? How many times have you asked yourself this? Or how many times have you said, I don't have enough time in a day? God, how am I going to get it done? This is my pride and joy, by the way. So what I have done is this was my first shot at how I think I spend my weekly time. You get 168 hours per week, right? So you get 168 hours per week. What does the majority of that go to? Well, if you look at sleep, 49 hours. Work, if you're working a 40-hour week, it's 40 hours, 24%. This was my first shot at this, by the way. I'm going to share my results of what I actually found after 30 days. But work, 40%. Diet, whenever it comes to eating, whenever it comes to going to lunch, whenever it comes to your coffee, whenever it comes to all the things that go into your diet. And I'm talking directly about food. I roughly estimated 14%. Reflection time, 3.5%. Exercise, if I work out 7 days a week, the drive time and everything else, I assumed that it would be 7 hours or 4% of my week. Family, I assumed 14 hours, which would be 8% of my week. Remaining of non-selected time, I just said, do whatever, 23 hours or 14%. Driving, 7 hours. Oh, was I wrong? Personal hygiene, shower, taking a dump, freaking putting deodorant on, all the things, like going to the bathroom. Like, I was like, you know what? I spend time in the shower. I shit on the toilet. Like, those things happen, right? So I just said 7 hours. And then reading, 2%, 3.5 hours. So this was my first estimate of roughly how do I spend my time every week, right? So whenever I was thinking through this, because I went online and I tried to find a way to calculate my time and a way to measure my time, and I couldn't find anything that I liked because I'm an entrepreneur. So therefore, the way that my time stacks up, I have a lot more control over my time than what the average person does. So like this number, I was like, do I really work 40 hours a week? Like, do I really have 23 hours remaining? Because I sure feel like in a lot of days, like, where did all my time go? So how to track your time? Well, this is how, if you wanted to actually do this accurately, this would be the steps. So number one, you download a time tracking app. Anybody can find them. They're free, okay? So first you download the app. The second thing is build out all of your activities. So you go through and you basically say, well, what activities do I spend weekly? And I would just go based off of the things that I had there, and then you'll find more. So your work, your sleep, all those things, right? You don't even have to add sleep. If you get 7 hours of sleep, which is roughly the human 7 hours of sleep a night, roughly, you're going to spend 49 hours a week. By the way, you spend the majority, if you look at the single activity you spend the most time in your life doing, you know what it is? Sleep. So why sleep's so important. So if you think about it, that is the majority of where your time goes to. It's crazy. Or it should, excuse me. So you build out all of your activities. Next, write out what you think are your most valuable activities. And the reason you're going to do this is because we're going to do a comparative analysis. The next thing would be track every activity hourly. So if you were sitting in here right now, you would go training sessions and you would click it and just let it start recording. Then when it's done, you'd press stop. Review your hours daily to find gaps of time. This is where it gets interesting because you start realizing how much time you spend on things that you don't want to tell yourself you spend time on. That's where it gets weird. And I'll show you guys why. And then after you do this, you do it 30 days consistently. This will change your life. I'm not kidding. If you do this, this will absolutely change your entire life. So this is what my app looked like. So I had the Backpack Theory podcast, chores, coin designs, community, cooking, meal prep, diet, driving, exercise, family time. Those two should have been combined. I don't know why I created them twice. Grocery shopping, intentional time with God, maze. That's whenever I spend time like just flipping out. Like I'm just literally sitting there catastrophizing and not doing anything. So like when I would find myself catastrophizing or I'd reflect back on my day and I didn't record it, I would go back and record maze is what I call it. Hours whenever it comes to solving why. So with you guys, like I actually went through and like had that as a tab in April, like how many hours I was spending on that. When I was doing sales, I would allot time to that. Pest control, if I was going to spray someone's house, planning and strategy, reading, reflection, journaling. I was helping out with a sports network at one point, social media, solving why whenever it came to another client, solving why whenever it comes to donation. So like if I would sit there and I would be on the phone with someone and not charge them for it, I want to know how many hours am I donating? Time with my daughter, Y training, time with my girlfriend. So this is what I broke down in April. Basically, like, where's all my time going? Okay. So after you get that time, what do you do with it? Well, you've got two values that you have to come up with. The first value is your time value. So your actual time that you spend on your top 10 activities. Okay. So based off of that first graph we had, this is what mine would look like. My time value would be number 1 would be sleep. Number 2 would be work. Number 3 would be family. Number 4 would be diet. Number 5 would be driving. Number 6 would be exercise. Number 7 would be hygiene. Number 8 would be chores. Number 9 would be reading. And number 10 would be journaling. So based off of my graph that I had, that would be where I allotted the majority of my time to. Okay. Now, some of these are a little bit like journaling would be reflection, just so y'all know, like they're a little bit different. Now, then you go in, so you pick your top 10 things that you actually spend your time on. Okay. Then you would go in and say, okay, what are the things that I find most valuable in my life? So you ask yourself that question, and then you arrange those 1 to 10. So my number 1 thing would be family. That's the thing I find most important. Number 2 would be sleeping. Number 3 would be diet. Number 4 would be work. Because I know that if I don't take care of my family, I don't sleep, I don't diet, my work's not going to perform well, right? Then exercise. And again, I made this a long time ago, and I'm going to leave it the same way because this was my first shot at it. Journaling, hygiene, reading, chores, and driving. Those are the ways that I prioritized my 10 top things. Are y'all with me? So these are the 10 things I spend the most time on. And I'm rating those. Well, I spend the most time on sleep, second on work, family, etc. Right? Based off of my understanding. And now based off of those two things, where is my actual value? What are the most important things to me? And I base those there. You're all with me? We're on the same page. No questions. We're on the same page. Okay. So how do we figure out where our time's going and what I call our time value index? Based off of where I'm putting my time, where is my value actually at? Because where you put your time will reveal where your value is actually at. Does that make sense? Okay. Now there's some things that are in control, like sleeping maybe is not like the biggest priority in my life, but like it's necessary, right? So if I take these two things and add them together, where do I go? Well, you got your time value. So if time, that should be sleep, by the way. I went through and edited this morning. So sleep, okay, would be 1 point. Work would be 2 points. Family would be 3. Same thing over here. 1, 2, 3. So I take my time value. So if sleep is 1 point, right? I would add that to my Y value, okay, which would be 2. And that would equal my time value index. So what is the most valuable thing based off of this in my life? Looking at this, guys, what is the most valuable thing? Lowest number is the highest score. What is the most valuable thing in my life? Sleep's number 1. Based off of my actions and based off of my values, sleep is the most important thing in my life. It's the thing that I contribute the most to, and it's the most valuable thing. Number 2 would be family, because it's 4 points, right? Family, 1 plus 3 equals 4. So I know that family is actually the second most valuable thing. Number 3 would be work. Number 4 would be diet, exercise, hygiene, driving, etc. So this is a scoring system for yourself so that you can actually see where's my value actually at. And this is based off of 145 hours. Again, I've given myself 23 hours to do whatever I want with. That can be vacations, hobbies, experience, social media, the entertainment. Here's the other thing. Think about this. If I look at this and I'm not happy with it, and I'm like, well, I know that sleep's got a ton of time value. How can I fix that? Well, I tell you how I fix it. How I fix it is I would take my extra time of doing nothing. So if I would say, well, if I got 23 hours extra and I need to spend more time with my family, instead of going on, instead of my hobbies, instead of my experiences, instead of social media or entertainment, I'm going to take those 23 hours and I'm going to give it to family. And guess what that would do? Based off of my time. That would now boost family to my number 1 activity. See what I mean? So you can play with this to actually make it to where your time is your highest value based off of this. What typically happens is this extra time goes to that, right? Are y'all with me? Does this make sense? Have you ever saw it broke down like this? Is this helpful? Have y'all, like, why is this helpful? Because what is our most valuable thing that we have that we can't buy more of? Time. You can earn more of it if you take care of yourself, but you could walk out of here today and get hit by a truck. So, like, how you spend your time is literally the most valuable thing. And if you want to increase your income, what do? You take either one of these things and you decrease it and you add it to work, or you take your leisure time and you add it to work, and you're going to do what? Increase your income. If you don't like the way your family life is going, well, then you either take away from one of these things or you take away from one of these things. The most interesting thing about this entire study that I did on myself over 45 days, but I just looked at 30, is that you can time hack with driving. So you can stack reading with driving, or you can stack family conversations with driving. The reason, and actually, you know how people have drivers? Like really wealthy people, I never understood it until I did this. And I was like, oh my God, if you have a driver, you can fully concentrate on work. And so instead of spending that time just driving, you can truly concentrate on work. So you are literally creating more time for yourself. I never understood it until I did this. When you think about it that way, it actually makes a lot of sense of why you would hire a driver if you're making X amount per hour.
For $50 an hour, you got book.
Yeah, because you're actually able to concentrate during that time. When you're driving down the road, you're not fully checked in, right? Or you can read a book, something. So I would encourage you guys, if you're concerned about your time and you're not happy with your time management, or you're like, where's my time going? Or you're telling yourself, I met with someone the other day and they're like, man, I'm working, 80 hours a week. And then I actually started going through it with them. And I was like, well, what are you doing for 80 hours? Because if you're working 80 hours and you're only making this much, you are wasting a lot of time. And so you need to go track your time to figure it out. And as entrepreneurs, this is something that nobody's going to do for you. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're in sales, if you're a high achiever, even if you're just a W-2 employee, nobody's going to do this for you. And a lot of times we sit there and we're like, well, our time is so wasted. Well, it's probably because you're not choosing to engage with that time correctly. So we can allot our ETA, or extra time allowance, which is what ETA is, to our TVI, or we can allot that time to can-dos, which are these. That's up to you. But if you want to increase one of these things, or you're not happy the way your list stacks up, then you need to adjust it. After taking a look at this information, the other beautiful thing is you can actually look over your calendar and start scheduling your blocks out based off of your TVI score. That's where this gets fun, because then you can actually go to your calendar and saying, okay, if I need to be reading 6 hours a week, or like that's important to me, where can I schedule that into my calendar? Right? Or if I need to spend more family time, where can I really go allot that and look down this week and basically put that into position? See what I mean? So then it allows you to actually start going and scheduling out time slot, which, if let's call a spade, if you're in this room, one of your biggest struggles is probably time management, right? Mine is. One of my biggest problems is time management. I found this tool and it helps me out all the time. I haven't even used it since April or May. And like, it has caused me to start recognizing whenever I'm wasting time. Like if I'm on social media, I'm scrolling, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God,